Welcome to Recurring Insight. It's the beginning of your upkeep, so it's time for another episode. I'm your host, Michael, and today we'll be looking at 3 food chain decks. Food Chain Sliver by Shaper, Chain Stalkers by Apotheosis, and the King's Chain by Centipedantic. To start, let's look at the commanders. The first Sliver and Korvold are both soft outlets, meaning they serve as a way to find your win condition by either cascading through or drawing your deck. Ukkima, on the other hand, serves as a hard outlet that actually wins the game. This causes Ukkima to be more proactive of the 3. Looking at the combos, while the first Sliver runs all of the cast from exile creatures, Ukkima is limited to only Eternal Scourge and Mist Hollow Griffin. Korvold, however, has cut Eternal Scourge to rely solely on Squee, as it serves as infinite sacrifice fodder. Additionally, Korvold runs Dockside and Sabertooth as an additional infinite mana combo that draws your deck using Korvold. The blue decks also run the Forbidden Tutor combos. The first Sliver relies on cascading, so it runs Labman and Lab Jace, but since Ukkima is a hard outlet, it cuts them to rely on Oracle. It's notable that Tainted Pact is being run in Korvold due to its synergy with Squee and Food Chain. Because Ukkima is a hard outlet, the Forbidden Tutors are going to be especially powerful, as you don't need to worry about exiling your win conditions. The field interaction is fairly minimal. All 3 decks run the best removal spells in Golgari colors. Korvold, lacking blue, runs more removal. Fire Covenant is a powerful removal spell, and both Mayhem Devil and Ren and 6 serve as combo finishers as well. Kenrith's transformation serves several purposes. It's removal that replaces itself, while also stopping your opponents from recasting or recurring the targeted creature. Additionally, it serves as sacrifice fodder for Korvold. While the first Sliver doesn't run Nature's Claim, it does get in on the action with Gilded Drake. The blue decks really shine when it comes to stack interaction. The only card that's present in all the decks is Veil of Summer because it's an incredibly powerful tool. The first Sliver and Ukkima have a lot of overlap, all of them running the staple counterspells. However, there are some clear differences. Ukkima runs Miscast while the first Sliver runs Spell Pierce, which showcases Ukkima's more proactive nature. This is further accentuated by the first Sliver also running Delay while Ukkima does not. However, while Ukkima joins Korvold in using Autumn's Veil and Destiny Spinner, the first Sliver drops them in favor of Dovin's Veto and Silence. Although it doesn't run Pyroblast and Red Elemental Blast, it does take advantage of Vexing Shusher. Korvold makes the most of its color identity by including 3 protection spells. One thing that surprised me was how sparse the card draw was in this archetype. They all run Ad Nauseam and Sylvan Library because they're staples, and Bob is not only consistent card draw, but also 3 mana when fed to Food Chain. While the first Sliver and Ukkima run the blue staples, one card I want to focus on is Windfall. Windfall was previously excluded from both the first Sliver and Ukkima. However, Ukkima has dropped Yawgmoth's Will for it. It's still not included in the first Sliver though. The reason for the original exclusion was to increase the tutor density. Lacking the blue staples, Korvold has to make do with what Jund has to offer. It runs Occam Adversary and Village Rites. Food Chain decks run a pretty high amount of tutors. To start, since all the decks run black, they also run the best black tutors. Korvold and Ukkima both run Diabolic Intent and Eldritch Evolution, which take advantage of dorks and synergize with Korvold. They also run Grim Tutor and Wishclaw Talisman, which, while suboptimal, increase the tutor density. The blue decks run the best universal and the best niche blue tutors. It's interesting that Ukkima runs Neoform while the first Sliver runs Foresight. Foresight is too slow for Ukkima, and Neoform can't find the cast from exile creatures for the first Sliver. In place of these, Korvold runs more Jund tutors. As the only deck running Gaia's Cradle, Korvold also runs Crop Rotation. It then runs 2 additional tutors to find Squee, Dockside, or Temur Sabertooth. Finally, it runs 2 more suboptimal but universal tutors. The first Sliver is the only deck that can run Enlightened Tutor. The first Sliver and Korvold run Squee, the only cast from exile creature that can also be cast from the graveyard, so they're the only 2 decks running Entomb. Food Chain decks are proactive, so they're going to be severely lacking when it comes to stacks pieces. Additionally, Ukkima is the only deck really running stacks pieces. Hullbreacher and Opposition Agent are more than a little broken, and Notion Thief is a staple for a reason. The other decks don't look like they were updated with Commander Legends, but I'd expect to see Opposition Agent in those decks as well. Moving on to the recursion, the decks all run black and green, so they have a very good range to choose from. All of the decks run Noxious Survival because Phyrexian Mana was a horrible mistake. Korvold runs Eternal Witness, which provides infinite recursion with Dockside and Temur Sabertooth. Reap is a great mid-range card, but it isn't fast enough for Ukkima. What is very interesting is that Korvold runs Underworld Breach, while the first Sliver runs Yawgmoth's Will. Including the Breach package would drastically lower the card quality in the first Sliver, but it also allows more recursion for Korvold. Like other proactive decks, they invest heavily into mana acceleration. They include the best dorks, rocks, and rituals. Not going to go over these because they're staples for a reason. The first Sliver gets to enjoy the benefits of having white, while Ukkima and Korvold have to make do with Priest of Titania. It's interesting that Boreal Druid makes the cut in even the 5-color deck and not in Korvold. Korvold doesn't run Wall of Roots either because, as we can see, Korvold prefers mana sources that have sacrifice synergy. It's notable that Korvold doesn't run Culling the Weak. The rituals are typically used to power out Ad Nauseam or Korvold, and sacrificing to get into Korvold is not what you want to be doing as it's a loss of tempo. Korvold does run Exploration, which could serve as sack fodder and lets you take advantage of the additional cards drawn. Ukkima also runs Elvish Spirit Guide. We're not going to go in depth in the mana base, but there are a few cards that I want to point out. The first is Gemstone Mine, which is rarely seen out of 5-color decks, making it into Korvold. Although the first Sliver runs Gemstone Mine for the colors, Korvold runs Gemstone Mine, Emergence Zone, and Prismatic Vista for the sacrifice synergies. Gaia's Cradle is only seen in Korvold as well, as it can fail to be useful in the first few turns. Looking at an overview of the decks, there are a couple key trends I want to point out. Korvold compensates for not having blue stack interaction with added removal. Korvold is also a draw engine in the command zone, so it runs less card draw. All of the decks run a high density of tutors and ramp, with a low amount of stacks. Regarding the position of the decks in the meta, the first Sliver and Ukkima are better positioned than Korvold. Not having access to blue is the biggest strike against Korvold, as it loses access to the forbidden tutor combos. The first Sliver, despite being only a soft outlet, is above Ukkima due to running white and red. This isn't a reflection of how well I think the decks are built, it's just my opinion on the potential power level for each commander or commander pairing. In this video, we covered the 3 most powerful food chain decks. Credit goes to Shaper, Apotheosis, and Centipedantic for the decks and Scryfall for the images. The links to the deck lists and the raw data will be in the description. I'll also be putting a survey in the description so I can better get feedback on how to produce future videos, so if you could take a minute or two to fill that out, I'd really appreciate it. I personally enjoyed looking at the King's Chain. I don't venture into the world of Sans Blue too often, but this was a cool deck. Let me know which one was your favorite in the comments. I'd also like to thank you all for watching and getting the channel to over 100 subs. That's awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to drop a like or comment, share, and subscribe. I'm your host, Michael, and I'll see you at the beginning of the next upkeep for another episode of Recurring Insight.